background about myself. My name is Ilona Rugg. I am from a German-Polish background. While living in Germany for 3 years, I attended school in Berlin until my mother decided to leave her family from the socialist country she grew up in to make a new home in the United States and become an American citizen. I am the first one in my family to go on to college. While attending college, I worked as a nanny and landscaper. I graduated from Wayne State University with a master's plus 15, with a major in science, minor in art. I also have an advanced master gardener certification from Michigan State University. I have worked as an educator for over 30 years in Michigan, 26 of those years in the Novi Community School District, where I retired in 2020. While working as a public school teacher and trying to keep my conservative Christian values, I took advantage of right to work, dropping my union. I pushed back against the district in public education through newspaper articles, live radio interviews on Wham Radio out of Ann Arbor, and provided information for an investigative report published by the Thomas More Law Center that went viral all over the world. We'll talk about that in a little bit, and you have a copy of the report. I have volunteered for numerous conservative events in Michigan, attended workshops in Washington, D.C. through Freedom Works for election integrity, was a poll challenger, and helped campaign for several individuals running for office, all while teaching in public school. I have made an ongoing effort to inform parents and the public that public schools are using our children to indoctrinate them. Children are not being taught moral values, about their God-given rights, or about our American culture. Children are being taught what to think, not how to think. The public needs to know this and how their tax dollars are being spent. I found this article, and this is a great opener on what I'm going to talk about. If one society wishes to overcome another society, there are a couple of ways of doing it. It can be done by direct attack with guns and bombs, or persuasion. If the first society believes the second society to be stronger militarily, it doesn't choose the first option. And if the first society believes the second society is stronger attached to its beliefs and way of life, it knows that the psychological subversion option will take a very long time, especially if the second society is very large. A lot of minds must be changed or persuaded. So the aggressor society must do it without being noticed. The change in the outlook of the target people must be gradual, so gradual that they don't know it's happening. Of course, they start with the children. If the children can be influenced, future generations will be easier to persuade. We all trust that our children will learn math, history, proper grammar, spelling, cursive, how to become a responsible, respectful, productive individual, and pass good morals they learn on to others. Oh, I almost forgot. Most public schools no longer teach grammar and spelling that is optional and should no longer affect the student's grade. Cursive, who needs it? Science and math, that is now replaced with Common Core, and the mention of God is a no-no. Social studies is the new history where students are indoctrinated with socialistic ideologies such as everyone is a victim, the haves and have-nots, spread the wealth, and people are bad and destroying the planet. School rules only look good on paper, but are never enforced with the fear of hurting someone's feelings. In addition, it is widely accepted for a 7-year-old in public school to be dissatisfied how God made them and decide for themselves to change their gender at will, while teachers better accommodate these children or else. Biblical morality is replaced with self-gratification and attention-seeking behaviors. Faith, family, and liberty are replaced with a values-free education, sexual ethics, students unable to reason for themselves, and not knowing the difference between right and wrong. All of this is the interweaving of what is critical race theory, another name for Marxism. Let me inform you first about Michigan's new social studies standards. These words were taken directly from the social studies standards that the Michigan Board of Education passed, despite pushback from distraught parents and community members. At the time when they were just putting these standards out, Patrick Kolbeck had asked me if I would speak at one of the schools. So I went to the Oakland schools to speak about it. There were a lot of parents there. There were even grown men in tears because they knew what was coming. And they were afraid of losing our country. But despite all this, they passed and they're implemented right now in the schools. So what I'm going to read to you right now is exactly what I said to the school board, and it has the words that I took out exactly from the social studies standards. The social studies curriculum is teaching that we are a democracy, which we are not. A democracy is like two wolves and a lamb deciding what's for dinner. Let me defer that one. We are a constitutional republic, which is also referenced in our Pledge of Allegiance. The social studies standards also mentions gay rights under civil rights. Our declaration clearly states that we are all created equal. We all have equal value in the eyes of our Creator. Our laws give us all equal protection, yet for some reason the standards have made an effort to take that part out. It also mentions that we are global citizens. I don't know about you, but I am a United States citizen, and no one can change that. The social studies curriculum is teaching students to be activists. There are words like persuasive communication, act constructively to further the public good, develop and implement an action plan, persuasive essays to justify a position, public discourse, public participation, persuasive communication with global issues, conduct activities intended to advance views in matters of public policy, report, evaluate, and engage in national and global issues. This starts from first grade on. The social studies curriculum insinuates how irresponsible America is when in fact America has among the cleanest environments and highest living standards anywhere. In these social studies standards, it gives an unfair balance to other religions. These standards have words like the significance of increasing trade between Islam and Christianity, the influence of Islam on Christianity and Hinduism, tension between Christianity and Orthodox Christianity, growth of Islam and Darwinism, Islam, where Muslim sovereignty prevails. The significance of Islam, the extent of Muslim empire, society, religious traditions of Islam, you see a pattern here. Cultural, political, and economic influence, the caliphate as a religious and political institute. So our own Christian views are mentioned very little. The social studies curriculum is pushing the study of socialism and a progressive indoctrination, not education. I came from a socialist country, and I came here because of your constitutional republic. Why would you even entertain anything else in this great country? Students are having their minds shaped by those who oppose God, individual freedom, and self-government. They are indoctrinated on everything from gender, sustainable lifestyles, global citizenship, and diversity. These standards have words like promoting the common good, providing economic security. Isn't that why no one wants to work today? Because they're all provided for. Molding the character of citizens, promoting a particular religion, keeping an ethnic group party in power, the role of the government as a provider of goods and services, the haves and have-nots, expressing identity, cultural diffusion, distribution of wealth, narrow the inequitable distribution of resources. I taught in Novi just before I retired science, and I was looking out of the window one day, and one of my students was visibly distraught after I said, "It's a beautiful day outside." It was winter, everything was covered in snow. It looked really pretty, and I was talking to her about it, and she was terrorized by the current narrative about global warming. As we were looking outside, she said that she probably won't reach adulthood to see another beautiful day outside because the earth will be destroyed by global warming. I had to counsel her and help her understand that that's just not true. Earth goes through cyclical fluctuations, and the world is not going to end, and she'll still be here, she'll be here to see another beautiful day, just as she is today. This is another example of what is being pushed in social studies. They're using words in it like how higher standards of living increase pollution, how plastics in the U.S. can impact water resources. Oh, all of you bad people that are using plastic straws. The use of fossil fuels leading to climate change, global issues, climate change, population growth, resource growth and depletion, meeting the needs of refugees, poverty, terrorism. No wonder so many students suffer from depression. We had a second grader in the school who was not able to identify whether they were a boy or a girl. This was in second grade. Parents were okay with this, pushing it. I also had a fifth grader coming into my class the following year with lack of gender identity. And I told my principal at the time that please don't put them in my classroom. I'm not going to entertain the personal pronoun. I will address them by their God-given gender. We have also parents that are okay with this. And I told them, I'm not going to play that game. So he said okay, and he didn't put them in my class that year. We also have clubs for kids. You know how a lot of the after-school clubs are, and this is not just in Novi, this is everywhere. We have the GSA Club, which is the Gay Straight Alliance Club. The teachers advertise that on their t-shirts. A little snippet about it says, join the Gay Straight Alliance and become a culture changer. The Gay Straight Alliance is a club dedicated to creating unity, support, advocacy, and a community for persons and families who identify as LGBTQ alongside their allies. Anybody can join this club, but you better be sure that you agree with them, because they will put your life through misery. And there are no Christian clubs, by the way. There are some schools where they are passing out contraceptives, and they're allowing children to come into school and change their clothing. And we don't have to tell you about it either. Slide 8. I'm not sure if you knew this, ladies and gentlemen, but social studies in my district, and in all districts that teach social studies, they're doing this everywhere. Every day we have social studies that's about 50 minutes, and we show the kids every day CNN. And when I ask, so that's about 25 minutes out of a 50-minute class. When I asked the social studies teacher why they show CNN, it's nothing but garbage information. I was told that it has a lot of good information for the kids about current events. Our social studies curriculum should be politically neutral, unbiased, and accurate. It should be a balanced view of history and civics. It should demonstrate a love of our country and how we've evolved to the great free self-governing country we are today. It should not teach children what to think, but how to think. It should not lose sight of our great nation and all the things we should stand for and be grateful for. It should give equal value to Christianity and our Christian values. It is what our country was based on, was it not? Why, ladies and gentlemen, do other countries get to have a balanced view of history and civics in their own sovereign country? If those other countries do, why is Michigan and the United States not allowed to? Even after objections from parents and some in tears, these social studies standards still pass and are being implemented by the State Board of Education in the United States. All right, let me give you some examples of how teachers are also being indoctrinated. Every year, teachers have to take PSD days, which are professional staff development days. We had a workshop run by high school students. These were mandatory. We had to take them in order to get our teaching certification credits. There were no adults in the room, just high school students. And they told us how they wanted to be addressed by their personal pronoun. He, she, they, them, it. And if the teacher does not comply, for instance, if I didn't want to go along with that, and makes that student uncomfortable by not going along with it, then that student can leave my room and go to their other teacher's classroom that participates in the safe zone. That is a classroom teacher that has, in our district, it's a little triangle with a rainbow in the back. It says safe zone. Those participating teachers have the triangle on the door. They were all trained in the LGBTQ. In other words, they can leave my room, go to that teacher's room, and then that teacher would go to administration to tell on me. So it's a vicious cycle. Another example is a 2-day workshop given, and this was during that same time frame. It was a professional staff development given to teachers by someone by the name of Huda Essay, a Muslim from Dearborn that gives lectures throughout the country to schools, universities, and businesses. During this 2-day event, she instilled that the majority of terror attacks since 9/11 have been carried out by white supremacists doing it in the name of their Christian religion, not Islamic-linked terrorists. That paper that you have in front of you, if you read it later, it's frightening. And this, how does this make teachers become better teachers? This was for 2 days. Huda was never vetted by the district. Prior to hiring, nor were the parents informed that their children would be given several surveys in school for Huda. So prior to this workshop, we were getting in our email several surveys. There was one for the students, and this was K through 12, and there was one for teachers. The survey had 115 questions on it. They asked everything from where do you live, how many people in your family, show on the map where you come from, how do you get to school, do you walk, do you ride a bike? 115 questions. You can imagine how long that took me to get my kids to answer all those questions. And they weren't just yes or no answers, some were short answers. And then I had the same type of survey asking me all these personal questions. We didn't know what these were for and we weren't told. But then these surveys, they were given, all that information was given to Huda. And after the workshop, which the teachers had, and they had a separate one for the children, they gave the same 115 questions again to see if they changed any of their minds with some of the information that they asked them. for by you guys, by taxpayers. So she was never vetted. You guys paid for it, and we didn't have to tell you about it either. So this is an example of how people are vacuuming up huge amounts of your children's private information. During the 2 days, you can go through slowly and let them read it. It goes up to 23, I think. She showed us, she didn't say a word, she would just show us, I guess you guys call them memes, pictures, and she wouldn't say anything. And I think she did this because she let us read it, and she couldn't be held accountable for saying it. She also had a lot of little activities in which they were to make us feel bad if we have more than somebody else. For instance, one of the activities that they did with us, they gave colored crayons, maybe 3 colored crayons to you. We gave you 2 colored crayons and asked you to draw a picture. And afterwards, well, how did it make you feel? Because you didn't have as many colored crayons as her. So just to show how some have more and you should be ashamed for them. By day 2, I knew something was going on, and that's when I brought my tape recorder. I couldn't take it anymore. I was biting my lip, and I brought the tape recorder, and I brought it, the information to the Thomas More Law Center. He is a law firm out of Ann Arbor. It's not profit, and he's a constitutional lawyer. He wasn't surprised by what was going on because he said that this was going on throughout the United States. She was going around with other people in schools, universities, businesses. So in the special report, which you also have, there are just a couple of things that are in there. The school district has presented no teacher training seminars focusing on Christianity or Judaism or any other religion, only Islam. She said that the Quran is superior to the Bible. Under the banner of promoting diversity, inclusion, and multicultural approach to education, ESSA sets about comparing Islam to Christianity, calling them mostly similar. The one big difference, she claims, is that Islam is the world's only purely monotheistic religion. Is this 26? Okay, so teachers were also given, during the China virus, an optional 21-day challenge. The 21-day challenge was nothing new. It was given to other organizations as well, called the 21-day challenge. It was 21 days that contained videos, articles, lectures for teachers to view and discuss afterwards. It was optional, but this was during our summer. And the videos or articles were about white privilege, white supremacy, how racist we really are, diversity, equity, inclusion, putting in our heads how much we should hate our culture and our whiteness. And then here are some of the examples of titles presented during that 21-day challenge. The 21-day challenge was given by what they call in the district, we are the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of Novi Community School District, formerly the Social Justice Ambassadors. And it was all about, well, you can see what kind of things they had. It was, they wanted social justice, they said. They had also resources for teachers that we were supposed to give. The resources were for teachers, for students, and for you guys. We were supposed to give you things like why teaching Black Lives Matter matters. Your black colleagues may look like they're okay. Chances are they're not. This was for teachers. Anti-racism resources. Teaching as activism. For the students, I was supposed to give them Black Lives Matter still matters. Teaching about race, racism, and police violence. And for you parents, I was supposed to give you articles on George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. What do we tell our children? Your kids aren't too young to talk about race. Okay, go ahead. During the summer, this was just before school got out, we had an email from our superintendent that was written to all the teachers in the district. I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but he says, in the wake of the George Floyd murder, we have not been silent on this issue in our district. For many years, we have focused on social justice, examining our own implicit biases, reflecting on how our language shapes and influences perception, and finding ways through summer programs, you saw the summer program, and other activities to support our students in their journey. But we are far from finished. Black students are overrepresented in special education. Black students are overrepresented in discipline. Some might say they need the support, or they need to act right. To that I say, bull bleep. We need to look at how we can react to situations. I'm not suggesting that anything goes. I am not suggesting that when students need help that you should not receive help. But I would encourage you to use your voice. You do not need my permission. 2 days later, him and a first grade teacher had a Black Lives Matter parade. And so that was for all the teachers and students. And it was funny because what happened is before they had the parade, they asked the teachers who wanted to participate to make sure that if you want to hold up a sign, that you let us know in an email, put it at the bottom of the list, highlight it, and it will get okayed by our superintendent. So I didn't plan on attending, but I thought I'd cause trouble. Sorry, Pastor LaFay. But I put a lot of scriptures in there, and I put All Lives Matter in there, and I jumbled it up. And I didn't highlight it either. And this is what they said. Hello, Ilona. I noticed you have made several additions to the approved science statements document. I ask that you please highlight the ones that were not approved. I wanted to let you know that I removed any statements that were religious in nature. As we represent a public institution, I do not think this is the right event for those statements. I forgot to mention also that All Lives Matter was also removed. I had it removed once before and it appeared again. The superintendent reached out to me and specifically requested that it be removed. That statement is viewed as an anti-Black Lives Matter phrase. It goes against the whole mission of this demonstration. Our goal is to show the public that we love and support the Black, in capital letters, community in their time of need. And then they also sent a message to the entire district. I was real famous that one. It has not been an easy task to monitor the fine line between opening conversations and pushing things too far. Unfortunately, at least one teacher added comments to the list without highlighting them and placed them in a manner that was easy to miss. Thankfully, it was caught and brought to my attention. I want to clearly state right now that All Lives Matter is not, in capital letters, an approved statement. If that is the message you have in your heart, then I respectfully ask you not to attend. This demonstration is in the support of our Black students and families. Oh, yep, okay. This is one of the walls in my classroom.
Oh, you are a troublemaker.
I worked there 26 and a half years.
Did they ever come in?
I've had supervisors, teachers, principals, and I had this up for over 2 years. It looked very patriotic. I had scriptures on the wall. Trump was elected that year, so I let me back up. Our library had every year a picture of our president and vice president up. Every year. In the 26 years I've been there, except for Trump.
Wow.
So I thought, okay, I'll do it myself. And then I also there's a poster in the middle of In God We Trust with the bald eagle, like the Bill of Rights. I had a lot of military things in the room, and I had a poster of all the presidents since George Washington as well, just to make it fair. One day, I got an email from a parent, and she emailed me and said, "Hello, Mrs. Rugg. At the curriculum night," now this curriculum night is usually like the third day of school, "I noticed that your science classroom features a wall display of posters unrelated to science, including a poster of President Trump. While I would find this entirely appropriate in the social studies classroom, I'm concerned that this is disruptive to the learning environment in your room. Please let me know if you would consider replacing this display with posters related to your curriculum or the district goals. I look forward to your reply. Thank you." Okay, well, I didn't know what to say. I thought, oh my, I gotta come up with something good. And so 4 days, I think, went by, and HR and my principal asked to meet with me. Oh, I know what that's all about. And so they spoke to me and they said, "You really upset her." I said, "Okay, well." He said, she said that her son is in your classroom and doesn't feel safe. I said, "Well, he never mentioned that, and she never mentioned it in her email." "Well, that's what she meant." "Well, would you mind taking it down?" I said, "Well, first of all, Trump is our president, and I have a poster of all the presidents. In God We Trust is on all of her money, and if that makes her uncomfortable, she can give me all her money and I'll make her feel better." "Well, would you take it down?" And I said, "I'm not taking it down, no." "Well, could you at least answer her email?" I said, "Okay." So I went and brought that email back to the Thomas More Law Center. Remember him from he's my buddy now. And he said, "Come up with an email, we'll work on it together and present it to this parent." I'm not going to read the whole thing, but now you have to realize Mr. Thompson's son is a military man, so he is very patriotic. On Thursday, September 19, 2019, I received your September 18th email. I was in the process of responding, but you had already sent your email to the principal, and later in the evening of the 19th, you appeared before the Board of Education and publicly made a complaint against me and asked the board to cause the removal of the following posters in my room. Now, mind you, she went to the principal, to HR, to the superintendent, and to 2 board meetings, and she also brought the ACLU in it.
Oh my goodness.
She wanted the following posters removed. In God We Trust, our national motto. The bald eagle, our nation's symbol, I guess she has something about bald people. And the portrait of President Donald Trump. At that point, since you seemed intent on igniting a controversy, and thus I saw no need to respond, so I go further down. The purpose of displaying the president's photo is to show respect not only because he is the highest elected official in our land, but also because he is the commander-in-chief charged with the awesome responsibility to defend our nation and our Constitution. Although you may not agree with his policies, it is still important that all Americans respect his office. You should be aware, it is not my policy to engage in partisan political discussion in the classroom. I regret that you have decided to ignite this public controversy. I recognize and appreciate that it is your constitutional right to do so as a parent. However, I do ask you to respect my constitutional right to display the posters which have been in my classroom walls for over 2 years. And I will not take my posters down. So that was a copy of the parents. Okay, go ahead to the next one. And then that was my response. I read a little bit more than what's being shown there. Next, I wanted to, let's see, there is a poster up here. I got this poster, I was in the school's library one day. And in the library, you're supposed to take out books, do your homework, read. I saw a group of girls making this poster, and then I saw the principal putting it up in our school commons area. And I saw other posters as well with stuff like this on it. It says, kids should have the right to vote. Now, mind you, these are 10, 11-year-olds, the building that I was in. Kids are already participating in politics, but don't vote. No taxation without representation. Kids with jobs pay taxes, but they don't have the right to vote. Kids have creative minds, so they will put a strong opinion into voting. Young people have adult responsibilities. Yeah, I'd like to know what that is. But are denied the same rights. Young people are expected to follow the law, but have no say in making it. Oh. Young people will make good voters. Kids have many good ideas as adults do. This is what our future will look like. We're going to vote someday, just like this picture. It has a gun with a cross out. Protect children, not guns. Fear has no place in school. And it says, visit NYRA for more info. Well, what is that? National Youth Rights Association. The organization is run by adults for children to get them to protest for a number of things they want to happen. There are 6 things. If you go to their website, there are 6 things that the children want. And here they are. Curfew. They don't want a curfew. It violates our freedom of movement and are ineffective at reducing crime. All right, so that's number 1. Drinking age and smoking. They challenge the absurdity of high drinking ages, and they can create a society that gives young Americans the respect they deserve. Number 3, this isn't meant to be funny. They want medical autonomy. They do not want your permission to have any medical procedures. Student rights. They want more rights to express themselves in and out of school without the fear of being arrested for disruptive behavior. Number 5, voting age. They want the right to vote. It's vital for a fully functioning democracy. See, they don't even know that we're not a democracy. Age discrimination. They say is a public health issue that is linked to anxiety, depression, obesity, high blood pressure. Giving me high blood pressure just thinking about it. And substance abuse. So they don't want any age restrictions on anything such as smoking, drinking, driving, working, censorship, stuff like that. So, next slide. So how did this all happen? How did it get this bad? We allowed this to happen. This social justice, critical race theory, cancel culture is everywhere. It's in our schools, our businesses, our fire and police departments, your local YMCA. Even some of our churches have let us down. They're going by the worldview instead of a biblical belief. DEI is even in my husband's fire department. They are shaming the men until they conform to whatever they want their beliefs to be. Huron Metro Parks are training their staff in DEI. They shame them until they submit, and they change their way of thinking. Originally, education was the responsibility of two people or two things. Who? Anybody know? Who originally educated our children way back? Parents, one, and church. Parents and church. But when public schools came about around in the early 1960s, we had given up our children to the government institute to raise, mold, and educate. Public education is doing your children an injustice. It is dividing us, not bringing us together. It is teaching us to hate each other for something that does not exist, but they are trying to create it over and over and over again. You know, in the 30 years that I taught public school, I have never seen any students be racist in my room. They've always been kind to other cultures. They've never been mean to them at all. But now it's a big issue. Everybody's racist. This may all sound like doom and gloom, but parents need to get involved with their children's education, or you will not recognize the beings that come off of those buses by the time they're in 12th grade. I'm telling you, they will hate you, they will hate America, they will hate God, and say that you are the cause of global warming, pollution, and that everyone, including you, are racist, homophobic, climate change denier, and xenophobe, whatever else other term that they can come up with. You have to get them out of public school, and you won't recognize them anymore. If you can, try homeschooling. There are also several private Christian schools out there. Just make sure they are not teaching Common Core. We noticed that the kids that were going through public schools that were being taught Common Core, that they were so far behind because we lowered the standards so everybody would pass, that by the time they get to the university, they have to take remedial math, reading, and writing classes to catch up and to restructure their minds with the basic math. Because this math, the parents can't even help them with it. It just divided them completely. My science curriculum, guess where my science curriculum came from? The University of Berkeley, California. So that was also a Common Core science. In that science curriculum, besides telling the kids that we all came from fish, it also stated that when I checked their tests, which were multiple choice, even if the students get the incorrect answer, I was supposed to mark it correct and give them credit for it. And when I asked why, they said because when they get an incorrect answer, it hurts their self-esteem, and learning stops when their self-esteem is hurt. I never participated in that.
What about all the eons before when there were right and wrong answers? What was everybody? I mean, they laughed.
Or psychological messages.
You know, this didn't happen overnight. This was a slow happening, and just exactly in the last couple of years, it was full force ahead. And you have to make sure that even some Christian and charter schools also teach Common Core. Because someone told me, oh, I'm sending my kids to this really good school. I said, okay, are you paying for it yourself? And they said, no. Well, where is the money coming from? The government. If it's coming from the government, then they're going to implement things that they want implemented. So you have to be careful and ask questions. There are a lot of schools out here in Brighton. We have that CSA, I think. They do Common Core. So you have to make sure that they don't just, right, the Cheryl Stockwell, right. So you have to make sure, and also fight for our tax dollars, which is funding all this garbage in public schools. Fight that if you want to pull your kids out, that tax money goes with us. Whether you don't have kids or you have kids you want to pull out, because you could use that money somewhere else. And right now, you're just funding public schools. Also, if you have a principal, for instance, that's conservative, I was told by other teachers, what you do behind closed doors, nobody has to know about. So I can teach whatever I want, and I don't have to tell you at all. The curriculum, which is supposed to be transparent to parents, we were told, give them only a little bit so they don't ask too many questions.
Wow.
Did that door swing both ways?
Could you have done what you wanted behind closed doors?
Well, that's why I graded the way I did the right way. I did as much as I could and pushed back as much as I could, and I thought the grading is absolutely crazy. I'm not doing this. What does that teach the student?
That's right.
There's a bill in front of our legislature right now to eliminate all their grades. Yes.
Yeah. So we are finding that students are pretty far behind because of this Common Core, and that by the time they get to college, again, we have to do remedial. We need to all push back. Don't take this type of behavior that they are pushing on our children. Go to your local school board meetings. Get a bunch of parents together. And don't let the board shut you up, shame you, or manipulate you. If they say they are not teaching DEI, they are lying because they might be changing the verbiage. On that one sheet that has critical race theory on it, on the bottom are different terms that they may use. So it's not always DEI. So if they use a different term and you ask them, they're not lying. They're not teaching DEI. They're just calling it a different name. Talk to your children and grandchildren about the truth. Lobby for real anti-hate laws and policies. Get laws passed so that our tax dollars follows you if you plan to pull them out. We are all paying for this propaganda that are filling our heads, children's heads with. God gave you the responsibility not only to teach your children, but also to guard them against evil influence from their peers in a profane culture. Just this morning, my friend texted me and said, my son started high school at Heartland Schools, and I asked him how his first day at school went. He said it was really weird. Him and another parent, they both have boys, said, this is high school. Kids were coming into high school with bunny ears on, and the school bus was filled with transgender wannabes. I can't express enough that you guys need to think about it. If your grandkids, if you put money aside for your grandkids, don't wait until you're gone. Give it to them now as a gift. So your kids can go to a good school.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.